Hey review family, keep it tight. My name is Jay Morse, the review guy, reviewing music for the love of music, and I'm back again to bring you another video. And in this one I'm going to be covering the new Bring Me the Horizon EP entitled Post-Human Survival Horror. This was the widely anticipated new extended play by the British metal and nowadays rock band Bring Me the Horizon. You would be hard fucking pressed to find another band that is not simultaneously as polarizing as Bring Me the Horizon has been throughout their entire career, but has had a trajectory that has transcended and blended so many genres throughout their entire timeline, ranging from deathcore to metalcore to electroniccore to pop rock to whatever you want to say. Their Music to Sleep To project was a complete detour, one that left a very sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. That is actually my most viewed review on this entire channel, so if you're here from that, thank you. Tip of the spring water to you. I see you. But in recent times there's been the confirmation that Bring Me the Horizon is not going to release a full-length studio album anymore, and more so are going to release a series of EPs throughout the next year that eventually amount to a studio album once combined. Think somewhat similar to what BTS did with the Map of the Soul series, where they combined it all into 7. Now obviously I don't want to spoil too much of my thoughts of this before we really get into the meat of the video, but I just want to come out and tell anyone that has been hating on Bring Me the Horizon recently for just changing their sound and just particularly it's not their cup of tea anymore, give this EP a chance, because I wholeheartedly believe, setting aside my own love for this band, that this is some of their strongest material they have come through with in a while. While I do enjoy Amo, I feel like pretty much almost all of this material can dwarf many of my favorite tracks off of Amo, and some of these tracks are even better than what was on That's the Spirit. Bring Me the Horizon have found a very healthy medium between their very heavy, over-the-top, gritty sound that was, say, present on Sempiternal and That's the Spirit with riffs galore, and more of a sort of saccharine and somber tone that takes on more of their emotional songwriting. Oliver Sykes has aged like a fine wine in terms of vocals. These tracks contain some of his most dynamic vocals, some of his most hard-hitting choruses, some of his best vocal riffing, some of his best runs, some of his best harmonies. I'm not going to say that Oliver has ever been the best singer in the game, and he always had that sort of raspy delivery, but he's really blending it here with more of a straightforward singing tone, but he still has his signature rasp there. Whereas on their recent records they have had a habit of really going into a direction that incorporated a lot more electronics. On this EP, they feel like they're going more back to their roots in the sense of heavy instrumentation. They're blending that with glitches and embellishments that are very much rooted in electronics, but it's simultaneously given this sort of sheen of heavy riffs and heavy drum work and Oliver's very impassioned vocals. This EP also consists of some really unlikely collaborations, everyone from Youngblood to Amy Lee of Evanescence, Babymetal, the duo Nova Twins, and while commercially this is being labeled as an EP, I would say that this feels a lot more even well-defined and well-fleshed out than other records in its field, let alone other Bring Me the Horizon records that I think it in some ways towers over. With 9 tracks and 32 minutes, this does feel like a full listen, like a full project, despite the fact that there were quite a few singles dropped in anticipation. And even though I think the singles are some of the best tracks on this record, don't let that be a full indication, because there are some twists and some turns instrumentally and compositionally, but just tracks like Obey with Youngblood, the just high-octane performances of both Ollie and Youngblood, the return of the breakdown, the chanted anthemic vocals of Parasite Eve, the very explosive chorus that it bounces right into. Sure, it can feel a little bit cheesy, but just the way it busts in from the slow, low-key verses reminds me a little bit of That's the Spirit. Teardrops is another fantastic single. Once again, you're getting these very hushed verses that feel sort of alternative rock, or maybe even sort of post-grunge-ish. Definitely something akin to more of the low-key tracks off of That's the Spirit, but they always bust into some very explosive choruses that are accompanied by really catchy bridges, and I will commend the catchy songwriting pretty much across this entire record for just sounding really in your face, but still accessible enough to not feel too campy or anything. The only single I'm not a big fan of is Luden's. I would say that that's probably my least favorite track on the record, just because I was never a fan of this track. I think it just sounds way too much. It is just gooey. I'm not gonna fault the band because it was for the Death Stranding soundtrack, and if I remember correctly, another band I really enjoyed, Churches, did one for that, and I wasn't a big fan of that one either. I just think there's other tasteful moments on this record where they incorporate the electronics, and I feel like the chorus doesn't slap nearly as hard as the other songwriting. That might be a bit of a differential considering whenever Luden's was made was probably a bit separate from when other tracks of the record were crafted, so I'm not entirely surprised by that. The track with Nova Twins certainly hits the least of any collaboration. I get what they were going for, but the sort of experimentation just feel like vocals accompanying one of the weirder tracks off of their Music to Sleep To EP, which was some of my least favorite electronics from any Bring Me the Horizon record. I appreciate them including the duo and really giving more of a spotlight on a duo that does deserve more credit for what they do, but it just doesn't really pan out in the execution format. And just to touch lightly on the opening track, it's times like this where I am reminded Bring Me the Horizon was a fucking metalcore band, and they still have it in them. I'm so glad that Ollie's done better to get his vocals in check so he can start doing these types of vocals. I didn't really think we'd get much like it. If anything, we were going to get some grousing and something similar to Sam Carter of Architects, but no, this track doesn't let up. The sound design on this track is great. The engineering work is something I have to commend not only on this track, but everything. The unique usages of silence, of pauses, the way everything is handled to give it this full mix. It's arena size, but without sounding like it's just some cheesy top 40 radio hit. Although I could see a lot of these tracks being on the radio, don't get me wrong, but do not sound nearly as gentrified. In many ways, I am thrilled by just how well the adrenaline feels and how re-energized and rejuvenated the band feels to be crafting a record that is this compact but just bursting with life, and it no longer feels like it's bursting with the potential of a new genre that is not being entirely explored too well, or feeling like novices playing around with a genre that is just so far out of their comfort zone that it just cannot be executed properly. This feels like a culmination, an amalgamation of every idea that has led Bring Me the Horizon up until this point and crafted them into the eclectic and far-reaching band that they have become. Anyone that is still denying that Bring Me the Horizon isn't one of the best rock bands when it comes to just blending everything, do you not see the field that they are up against? There are still a couple tracks I want to talk about. Two of my favorites on this EP. Holy shit, Kingslayer with Babymetal. I don't think I'll be the first to say, I've never really talked about them at length, but I'm not a Babymetal fan. I will come right out and say it, but they slay this track with Bring Me the Horizon. Ha, Kingslayer, get it, pun? Didn't intend that. Once again, sort of like Dear Diary, it's so consistent. The growls that hit on some of the verses, the chorus, the layering, once again, the sound design on this track is so full and so vibrant and so vivid. It just feels like you're watching the cinematic masterpiece from afar, and all you can do is look on as this epic battle is raging. While I have felt that Babymetal's sort of J-rock inspired power metal niche shtick has just been a little bit too much to digest and just felt way too over the top for my liking, they work so well, and the chemistry between them and Bring Me the Horizon is just insane. It feels intrinsic. I want more collaborations. My favorite track on this record, the undoubtedly least heavy. And I want to read this title to make sure that I do it justice and get the full title. One day the only butterflies left will be in your chest as you march towards your death. Featuring Amy Lee of Evanescence. For anyone that is familiar with the Another Life rendition, the recreation, the orchestral cinematic rendition that Motionless in White did, I can equate this to it, but in some ways better. I have followed Bring Me the Horizon for so many years at this point. I own their entire discography on physical copy. I have spent hundreds of hours with this band. I have never once heard Oliver's vocals be this passionate and this harrowing and this beautiful. The swapping out back and forth on these verses and the way they layer, it sounds like both of their souls are being ripped out. To say that they gave everything they had to their performances on this track would be a complete, utter understatement. I would say if you can't enjoy this track, you either are not relating to the message, or it's just not your cup of tea, or you just have a predisposition to dislike the band as a whole. But once again, I have to say, the sound design on this track is just frankly breathtaking. I am impressed. I am so impressed. I'm not a big fan of the interlude track, and I'm not a big fan of Luden's, and the Nova Twins track didn't really pan out in the best way. But overall, what's good about this record is phenomenal. I don't like to throw around terms for that, and I'm setting my bias aside because there are quite a few tracks I don't like on this record. Even some of the moments on this record where something doesn't just quite make the cut in terms of being as flames as everything else, it doesn't feel as nearly as corny as it was on Music to Sleep To. And I am just impressed that this far into their career, Bring Me the Horizon has had a resurgence this hard. I'm really enjoying this EP, like seriously, check it out. It certainly has its flaws, but in terms of sheer songwriting, vocal capability, instrumentation, collaborations, left field ideas, sound design, just all across this record, it's great. And I just look forward to more of these EPs, because if they're the same quality of this, once it goes into one full studio-length album, we could be having quite the thing on our hands. I'm going to be giving this EP a 7.5 out of 10. And that is a wrap. Have you heard this new Bring Me the Horizon EP, Post-Human Survival Horror? If you have, let me know in the comment section below what you thought about it. I would love to discuss this record with you. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, the Review Guy, and I'm signing off saying farewell.